Ladies and gentlemen, I am a writer. I've written over 90 children's books, but I want to tell you there's a whole lot of things that I do that are far more important than being a writer. I'm a parent. I have 3 incredible children. I'm a sports enthusiast. I've coached rep soccer, rep basketball, some of the best teams in this country. I am by training a social worker. I have worked in children's aid societies, mental health centers, private practice, and for 18 years in the emergency part-time while I worked full-time as a teacher. I run a children's outreach program in Kenya. It's called the Creation of Hope. These are 31 of our more than 400 orphans. These are the kids in the Rolling Hills residence. These are kids who have nobody, nothing. Last year we had over 125 schools involved across Canada with support as far away as Germany and Japan. We made 2 commitments to schools. Every single penny that comes from a kid, every penny that comes from a school goes directly to service. There's no administrative costs. And through our website we actually show people line by line, dollar by dollar, item by item, school by school, how we spend their money. Because it's their money, they have a right to know. We think this is how you create global citizens, not global cynics. But the role that started me off, teacher. I was a new teacher to school, and they did to me what they often do to a new teacher to school. They gave me every student nobody else wanted. I had 28 kids, of which 22 were boys. These are wonderful kids. They were good in 3 things: gym, recess, and lunch. They didn't like to read, they didn't like to write. They were pretty good at making up stories, but that was mainly when they were trying to convince the vice principal not to suspend them again. I wanted to stop making up stories and start writing them. We were studying local communities, but no one had ever written a novel about Streetsville before. No one had written a novel about Mississauga before. I wrote one for my class called Stand Your Ground. The school in here is called Vista Heights Public School. There's a soccer theme there because I love soccer. The big green and white water tower beside the school, it's in there. In real life, kids used to go behind that water tower and have fist fights. That happens in there as well. At the end of the school year, one of the kids in my class said to me, "You know, Mr. Walters, your book is not as bad as most of the garbage in the library." High compliment from this group. Why don't you try and have it published? I sent it off to 6 publishers, 5 rejected me, the 6 accepted me. I'd written a book, but I'm not a writer, I'm a teacher. First day of school the next year, the kid said, "What are you going to write about this year, Mr. Walters?" Maybe I was a writer. Stars was about outdoor education. Diamonds in the Rough. I wrote this for a health unit. I'd never written a novel for a health unit before. War of the Eagles. The internment of Canadians of Japanese descent. The sequel, Caged Eagles, got me to Paris, France a few years ago. The United Nations had a book award. I won an award for literature in service of tolerance. I think my social work background started to influence my writing as well as my teaching. Sketches about street kids in downtown Toronto. It also involves sexual abuse and self-mutilation. Not a gentle book. Shattered. The Rwanda genocide. My consultant for this, Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire, he wrote the foreword. General Dallaire is the bravest man I've ever met. We all fall down. A young man goes with his father on Take Your Kid to Work Day. His father works on the 85th story of the South Tower World Trade Center. The date, of course, is September 11th. This book is available around the world, a bunch of languages. It's done very well. Bifocal, black and white racism, wounded. My main character's father's in Afghanistan. He's a member of the Canadian Armed Forces. He's serving over there promoting what we claim we believe in: democracy, freedom, equality. He's lucky enough to come home, safe. But some wounds you don't see. He was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I used to receive email from soldiers in Afghanistan telling me how much this book meant to them. I got an email from a woman saying her husband came home suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and didn't know it. She made him read the book. He got treatment. She told me how much this book meant to her and her family. I told her how much that email meant to me. Run. Canada's perhaps greatest hero, Terry Fox. Family wouldn't let anybody write for 20 years. I convinced them to let me write this book. When you buy it, all the royalties go to the Terry Fox Foundation. I'd never take a cent for cancer research. When elephants fight, half of a Kikuyu saying, when elephants fight, the ground suffers. This is about children experiencing war, and half the money from this goes to Gulu Walk and Athletes for Africa. Tell me why. Advice from some amazing people, Romeo Dallaire, Jane Goodall, Rick Hansen, to a young person about how to change the world. The majority of the royalties go from this to Free the Children. My involvement with Free the Children took a personal tragic note. In our family, my brother-in-law died of cancer. My son raised $23,000 to build a school in his memory. He and I traveled to Kenya to build that school. We had someone from Kenya living with us at the time. She said, when you're in Kenya, please visit our family. We went to a place called Boni District up in the mountains. On a clear day, you can see Mount Kilimanjaro. They said we were the second and third white people to walk through this market as far as most of them could ever remember. While we were walking through there, we discovered a young man. He was working instead of going to school. He was working because his mother suffered from malaria. Malaria is a disease that comes and goes. When it's bad, you can't work. When it's real bad, you can't walk. And for her, it's so bad she hadn't been able to get out of bed for 6 months. Not that they owned a bed. They were evicted from where they lived. They lost all their possessions. They slept in that market. At the end of the day, he'd pick his mother up. They started, drag her out of the market, put her down, go back and work. We found out there were 500 kids in this community of 22,000 just like him. We decided we needed to help. My wife and daughters and I went back. We partnered with local people, church activists, elders. The Chatham family gave us land. We found that boy. His name is Matuku. Matuku's mother died the December before this. He lived on his own for a while. That great aunt took him in. She couldn't feed him. She gave him a roof. He still worked in the market 5 days a week. He became the first child on our program. 1 became 2, became 8, became 16, became over 100. We have what we call a genuine sponsorship program. That's Gail. She sponsors these 2 kids. This is one of my favorite pictures in the universe. That's a little girl named Anastasia. Her parents died 6 and 7 years ago. She lived with old poor grandparents who couldn't afford to feed her, couldn't send her to school. This picture captures the moment when my son, Nick, and one of his roommates, Jack, said to her, Anastasia, we're your new sponsors. You can go back to school tomorrow. You're never going to go hungry again. You can become anything you want in life. Look at her expression. Look at my son's expression. You ever want to know the true meaning of joy and happiness? Help someone that desperately needs your help. You'll feel it right there. It's like no feeling you've ever felt, and we're all capable of feeling that feeling. That's my baby, Julia. That's her sponsored child. I'll tell you about him. When he was born with no fingers in this hand and 2 fingers in this hand. So his mother tried to kill him. Grandmother wouldn't let it happen. That's her. Her name is Grace. In a place where most people are poor, Grace was about the poorest person I've ever met. Before the mother gave this little boy up, she named him. She called him Mathini. In Kikima, Mathini means suffering. She called him suffering. Grace had 9 grandkids. She wanted to care for them, but she wasn't able to do. She came to us and said, little Mathini, people make fun of him. They throw rocks at him. Adults call him a curse to our family. He needs more. Can you take Mathini in your orphanage? And we said, we're sorry, Grace. There's no room for Mathini in our orphanage. She said, I understand. It's crowded. There's lots of orphans. If I come back in a month or 3 months or 6 months, will there be room for Mathini? We said, Grace, you don't understand. There will never be room for Mathini in our orphanage. There'll never be room for suffering. We do have room for blessings. If we can change his name to Baraka, he can come tomorrow. Our patron held out his hand to him and said, hello, little boy, my name is Elijah. And what exactly is your name? This little boy with 2 fingers took Elijah's hand and said, my name is Baraka, because I am a blessing. Baraka is one of those special kids I've ever been involved with. He's just turned 13 years of age. He's one of my heroes. Baraka doesn't know how to stop. He doesn't know how to complain. He doesn't know how to do anything except look forward. There's going to be a book coming out called My Name is Blessing about Baraka. The galley proofs were sent to him, and he emailed me back and said, thank you for telling my story, and I think I'm going to become famous. Because of him, this family will never go without. His oldest cousin, Benjamin, has now started high school. We pay for it. You can't go to high school in Kenya unless you pay. We have 24 kids in high school. That's our first. Her name is Faith. Kettle Lakes Public School. The principal went to the kids in the school and said, $8 buys a chicken for an orphan. It'll change their lives. I do not want you to go home and ask your parents for $8. I want you to ask them for $8 worth of chores. If 100 of you bring me back $8, I will spend the day dressed as a bird. Over 200 people brought back their money. Mr. Michael Cohen spent the day dressed as a bird. If anybody asked him, he'd do the chicken dance for 20 seconds. They gave us the money on a Monday. The following Saturday, we gave out the first 42 chickens. We took this picture. 2 days later, the kids of Kettle Lakes got their thanks. That was 7 days between giving us the money and seeing the results. We can't always be this fast. Sometimes we're faster. Sometimes it takes us a few months. Whoever gives us money will guarantee that that money will show you how we spend it. Complete transparency, complete accountability. We give out 2.3 metric tons of food every month to the 350 orphans in extended family situations. We also give them blankets and beds and sheep and goats. and we all say thank you. My friend Steve Pitt gave me $200. What does $200 actually do? November 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, the 44 kids at Rolling Hills were fed, their medical treatment provided, their school supplies, their school uniforms. The salary of the matron, the night watchman, the tutor was paid. The electricity, the sanitation, the water for the entire building. $50 a day is what it takes to run an orphanage in Kenya when you run it in Kenya and not some fancy offices. We always say thank you to people. Goats, I love goats. We bought over 400 goats. A goat costs $40. Somebody gives us $40 to get a picture of the orphan that got it, the goat, and a sign thanking them personally. We have a library, the only library in Mabuni district. It's named after my grade 5 teacher. She was the woman who said to me, "You could be a writer when you grew up." I thought that was stupid since I was going to be in the NBA. Apparently one of us was stupid, but generally speaking, how the Raptors have done, could they do any worse with me on their bench? As you might imagine, some of my books are there. Kate did a placement. We do placements. She did a 2 months placement. When she left, in her honor, we put uniforms on the school teams. We built Kate Stadium. By that I mean we put in soccer nets, netball poles, sports equipment. Kids do have a right to play. We make sure all the kids in Kayangoma, not just our orphans, have school supplies. When we brought them that day, you think the teachers had won the lottery. We provide tools. That old saying, give somebody a fish, you feed them for a day, teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. I love giving out tool sets. Look at her expression. People do not want charity. They want opportunity. They don't want a handout. They want a hand up. That's a look of pride and gratitude. This is our well. We dug it with that bucket, 2 shovels. We hit a rock the size of a Volkswagen. We used that hammer and that chisel to go through 72 feet. We went chip by chip. It's okay to pray for a miracle. Keep working while you're praying. We have water for everybody. If you give people water, you give them life. This community came to us and said, we have a trickle of water. Can you help us? We said we can partner. We'll provide cement, iron rods, stonemason, water mason, the hardware. You have to give us sand, gravel, and labor. 900 people have had their lives transformed. They've more than doubled their crops. They can water their livestock. They can drink. They can wash. This project for 900 people, $1,200. They built it. They know how to fix it and keep it going. These people came to us and said, we have a trickle of water in the mud. We constantly have waterborne disease. Our children are sick, hospitalized, dying. This project provides fresh drinking water for 600 people. It cost $800. The money was raised because Mr. Ryan Rumsby took his grade 6 class out on 2 days and raked leaves. Since this project's been in effect for 18 months, not one case of waterborne disease. You want to know what a hero looks like? You're looking at them. These kids have saved lives. We have cows. The orphans drink the milk. The manure goes in our biogas plant. We cook with it. We're trying for self-sufficiency. Every year people come over. Last year, 19 people. Every single person that travels, including me, pays every cent of their own expense. Not one can of soda will ever be paid for by charitable donations. If somebody sends somebody their sponsored child, they get a picture of every item in that package. We want them to know their good deeds have an impact. We built our first building to hold 16 kids. We went to 18, went to 30, went to 44. This is our new building going up. This is local people paid a local living wage, locally fabricated metal, locally manufactured bricks, locally harvested wood with a replant to make sure we don't have deforestation. It's almost finished. That's where little boys live. Our stove was paid for by Roberta Bondar Public School, our oven by Alexander Graham Bell School. Our dining hall is called the White Horse Room because these kids raised the money to pay for the tables, the chairs, the paint, and the plaster. And these flags proudly hang in our dining hall. I want to leave you with one short clip because it always makes me smile. I want you to listen to the words that they're singing.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, dear me.
Every year we have a birthday party. The first year it was 98 kids, the second 144. Next year we're hoping for 250. For these kids, it was the first time they'd had a party. Partly because they didn't have the money. Partly because a bunch of them didn't know when their birthdays were. They were born, abandoned so young they didn't know the day, the month, or even the year of their birth. If you don't know your birthday, you can't get a birth certificate. If you don't have a birth certificate, the government can treat you like you don't exist. Those are real people. As real as you and me. They all have birth certificates. This all started with me writing a novel for a bunch of grade 5 kids who didn't like reading and writing. You never know what paths you're going to take, what roads you're going to go along. Where life starts and where it ends are so different places. This project has significantly changed the lives of 400 children, 400 orphans in Mabuni. It's also changed lives here, including mine. Thank you very much.